This is as groovy as it gets.
Oprah, Can You Hear Me? Oprah vs. Donald 2020 is a conversation by Julie Benetti and Susan Barbaro and a production of EI Alliance, copyright 2019. America is courtesy of New Threads off their new album, Felonious Wilma.
Hi, this is Susan, and I'm here with Julie. And if you've been listening to us, you know that we are knee-deep in the Democratic presidential debates.
Night two. And so, it's funny because this is like the sequel, to the first debate, or, the premiere occurred and then the second night occurs. And I was actually watching because I was watching the moderator questions and I was listening. Is there anything the same? Because that's not really fair. I mean, back in high school,
you mean
you would be in the first session and you would take the test and then people would say, what was on the test? Was it hard? And you would say, oh, they asked this, this, and this. And then the teacher gives the same test in the afternoon. And the people would know all the answers. The classmates would know all the answers. And so there were some of the same questions, geared a little bit differently. So you kind of knew the energy.
But I believe that they probably knew all the questions coming into it. That's why they have all their specific numbers and their stats that they have to quote. I believe that they were given all of the questions ahead of time. They probably didn't know exactly who was going to get what. And of course, you can't prepare for rebuttals. If someone says something and you're going to rebut them, then you don't have that ahead of time. But
okay, but I'm not sure about that because at the end, Rachel Maddow said that she had a whole nother binder full of questions, and they didn't. I'm telling you, the people who were surprised were the moderators.
Yeah,
it
didn't matter.
They didn't expect such a conversation to occur in a debate amongst themselves without the moderators. They could have gotten rid of all the moderators.
Well, the moderators stunk anyways. They didn't keep anything. And so the other side of it is that we hold ourselves out. We're just two women from Boston, and we're not in the political arena. We're authors, and we do podcasts, and we talk about energy, and we do a lot of different things. So we're not politicians, and we're really not political, I'd say official political analysts. That's not what we do. What we do is we really work with energy, and that's why our podcasts are a little bit different. And when I heard some of the things, not that I agree or disagree, but what I thought was interesting was some of the responses I saw. That it was like, this was interesting. She had some really interesting ideas. It wasn't, did you like her? Did you not? Well, some people, of course, go into that, but it was like she brought up different aspects and different things to think about, which is what I enjoy with anything I do, whether I'm reading, whether I'm listening to music, whatever it is I'm doing. I always like to be given something to think about in a different way. And so when we go into this, and I said to Julie ahead of time, I said, I'm going to start it off, and you did, which was funny because it goes however, but I really wanted to go into the energy of this because this is really, because when we did the other podcast, we started talking about Kamala Harris, and we said that I don't really know much about her, and so when we go in it, I don't like to think from my standpoint that I'm going in and I'm judging her based on whether she's got good policies, whether she handled the issues. Where I try to go into the energy of when she was speaking. And what did I feel? Did I feel that this was contrived? It was just blah, blah, blah. She was trying to manipulate. She was trying to use old tactics. Or is she just finding that space in herself and moving and going from that place? That, to me, is what is making what I think these podcasts, I'm hoping people are getting. Because we're really talking about the energy. Because when we talk about Trump and we talk about his success, whether you like him or not, it has nothing to do with my opinion or Julie's opinion or anyone's opinion. He has been successful and he continues. And we don't go into what was his policy, what does he do, he bullies, he yells. We don't go into any of that. We go into the energetic concepts, how he's using energy. And if people talk about energy and they think it's, this out in the, we have looked into it. The one thing I want to talk about is it's in your subconscious. Mm-hmm. When you think that this energy stuff is garbage or baloney, you are so limited because your subconscious is picking up things and doing things. And you access your subconscious through energy. And so if someone's out there doing things, it's like subliminal messages.
Right.
And marketing. If you say, oh, that's garbage, well, then you don't believe that you're being manipulated by marketing. And we all know you are. So that to me is what's interesting about the debates and what we're talking about. I don't care about the issues. I mean, I do to a degree. But more importantly is we go to the energy, and I can sense when someone is giving me malarkey and trying to feed me something and trying to, subliminally tell me something and that they want me to believe about them or about a situation. And I get very upset with that because I don't like that feeling. Because you can tell, I know it's like someone's trying to, screw you and you know it.
Right.
And so when I look at these people, and what I really wanted to talk about is the energy.
Right.
Because that's what this is about. It is not about who won the debate because they yelled over this one or they got, more airtime.
Well, again, if you listen to our podcasts about the first debate, we talked about, when they're up there and they're trying to convince you of something, then, they're trying to persuade you, yet they're also trying to convince themselves. So where's the authenticity in that?
Right.
And there was a little bit of talk about, from some of the other candidates about their family members, and someone mentioned their mother was a Holocaust survivor, and, there was a little bit of talk about that. And
yeah, that was Buttigieg. I can't even say his last name. The South Bend mayor from Indiana.
I think it was another candidate that had mentioned that. I can't say.
Okay,
I've taken some notes, but anyway, there was a lot of mentioned of family members in some sense, and there wasn't a lot that kind of just got you into the energy of the person.
Right.
And with Kamala Harris, there was, yet she had to it's like kind of a first impression.
Right.
She had to kind of she brought you in a little bit with the story, and there was a mystery to a story. And at some points, I was like, I just want to hear the answer. I don't want to hear a story.
I walked out on the stories, and she just talked about what
when she went for the punchline. I was happy about that. She went for the push, and I will say though, if you go back to our Trump book that we wrote, Marianne Williamson used some of those zingers in there. Yet, she did a cool thing by interjecting the energy with some, if you want to term them, holistic kind of arenas of thinking differently, which are very powerful. Yet, they came out maybe kind of hokey because of the setting that they were in.
Right.
They would have been powerful maybe in a different kind of, even more powerful in a different kind of setting. Kamala Harris came in and talked about the stuff, but then she also kind of gave what the news media was telling everybody that they want.
Right.
She gave the attack on Joe Biden. And they even had to, I mean, gets ridiculous. They spoon-fed at the end of it in their commentary to say, okay, now she attacked an elderly white man, and who else is an elderly white man that we know? So she could probably attack Trump. And it's like, don't be doing that stuff with me.
Oh my God.
Because I just want to get into the energy, like you said, of what she's saying, of what her words are, and what her words are not. And so when you listen to and you hear what the responses were of what their words were, I mean, the gentleman who was the businessman, entrepreneur,
Andrew,
I mean, all I heard every time they asked him a question, the first time, I mean, you're there to answer questions. You're there to answer questions. They ask him a question. He says, sorry. And it's like, wait a minute,
did that
just
too.
say something. You're there to answer questions. I'm going to ask you a question. Sorry. And when you make that first response, what does that kind of persuade you? I mean, hello, wait a minute, what's he saying? What's he sorry for? And so, and all I knew from him was, okay, every time he opened his mouth, he was throwing $1,000 out to people. I'm thinking, that would be nice, but what does it do, And then a value-added tax? I go to Canada a lot. You go to Europe, you have a value add. The taxes are high on stuff. I mean, it's added on to other taxes. And so there wasn't a lot of explanation about that. And the funny part was, in the middle, it was like a vortex between, not even that Biden was a part of it, but Sanders and we agree with Sanders and what he's talking about, but not if it's socialism. And then they would really get into the policy. And it was like, well, wait a minute, you're getting into the policy, but you're really, what are you saying? You're saying stuff. And it was great because at one point I think Marianne Williamson came out, because sometimes I had to like move the butterflies and the unicorns that were floating around out of the way. I'm not saying anything mean, but sometimes she came out and she said, you're talking about all these policies that, and she kind of, I don't think said it this way, but said, what I heard, you're talking about all these policies when really, yes, it's about who can get up there against Trump and change this. And all these things have been going on for how long? So why hasn't anything been done? Somebody else said that as well.
So, well, I think that's when I saw a tweet. Someone, I don't know if it was Bernie Sanders, said, why is this not changed? And they're like, hello, you've been there 22 years. So my takeaway from this is, I think Kamala Harris, this is, I would believe, her first presidential debate. I mean, I know she's a senator, and of course you have to debate and you have to be in that space, but this is a different arena. And I would believe, like anyone else, being who you are and then stepping in the arena is a little bit different. That's why I think Ronald Reagan, I love the quote that he says, he couldn't imagine anyone doing this without having been a movie star first. And, of course, Trump had that experience. He had international exposure. So he was able to walk into that space in a little bit more confidence and a little bit more experience. I don't get the sense that Kamala had that experience.
You just said a really important point. I don't know if we've ever just kind of laid that out completely, but if you look at everybody on that stage, has any of those folks ever been an actor or an actress?
So,
and then I would ask, who has?
So,
and then I would, where I'm going.
Yeah, you didn't let me finish my point. You're jumping. You always take it.
Because you said that the actor or actress.
So, okay.
So go ahead. So then I'm going to leave that out there for you folks. Go ahead. Think about who has that we know, who's pretty big, that everybody knows of.
Right.
Go ahead,
she's not. Well, so then that, what, because I was going to say, so I'm looking at this saying Kamala Harris is someone who I'm going to watch. And I was going to say Marianne Williamson, because she's in a different space. She's an interesting curiosity. And of course, she is attached to exactly who you're referring to.
And so,
which is Oprah.
Right, exactly. Because Oprah was in The Color Purple. She has her own network. Hello. And if Ronald Reagan said that, so, you just proved one of our science principles in our book, which we haven't completely clearly stated this regarding Oprah, I think, that if Ronald Reagan said that, maybe we did in like our first or third podcast or something, but if Ronald Reagan said that and he was the president, do the math equation. If A plus B equals C, then you're looking for someone who's, Donald Trump had a smaller part.
Right. But he had The Apprentice show. But where I was going to also say is Marianne Williamson, as being an author, she's an international author. So she may not have the experience of a debate, but I believe she's got the experience of she was on Oprah as well. It was on. So you're giving me a look.
No. You know what I'm thinking? It's interesting because I'm contemplating this myself, because I'm a writer. I'm an author. And so why would I not go out 1,000% behind Marianne Williamson? And the funny part about it is, the part that I do support of her is that I think she can change the irrelevancy of the self-help industry. I think she can go out.
I don't know if she can, because I'm also wondering whether or not she's still a part of it. I don't know where she is on that scale, because the self-help industry destroyed a lot of people.
Well, she did come out and she did say that immediately. It was almost like she read from our blue book. She did say that, it's not about sickness care.
Right.
Because it's all about, that's what it is. It's sickness care. It's not health care. It's not about people being healthy. And I thought that was really cool to just come out and say. And I don't know if that was the platform to people to get it. If it went subliminally, that would be great. or unconsciously, that would be great. I think from that standpoint, I mean, she's listed, if you look at her background, they list her as, a self-help author. Sometimes they don't know what to call you. Yet if she can bring out, I mean, even there's gifs and there's memes of her final statement. Did you see her final statement? Or her final statement was pretty intense.
I saw it after the fact.
Right.
When she said, Trump, if you're listening, and I hope you're listening. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my takeaway is Kamala and Marianne Williamson, and I think Bernie Sanders will continue. I see those three from an energetic standpoint. I'm not talking about, that's the sense I get. I can feel those. Marianne Williamson, I'm not saying they're gonna win. They're gonna be watched, and their energy is definitely in very potent energy, and they're in that space of the energy. And I don't know about Bernie Sanders. I think he's just kind of grumpy, in his grumpiness, he's in his own space. The fact that he's grumpy keeps him out of I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care if anyone likes me or doesn't. He's in his own space, which will help him if he does go up against Trump, because that's the first thing Trump does. He tries to go in and rattle you and kind of pull you out of your own comfort zone and pull you out of it, because he, as we said before, Trump thrives on uncertainty. Will these other candidates, even the ones I mentioned, thrive on uncertainty? I don't know.
Well, Bernie's already rattled, so I mean, how much more can you rattle him? So
that's why I think
keep going. I mean, he thrives in the rattling.
But I'm talking about Kamala and Marianne.
And so Trump's first tweet, I mean, I was watching, his tweet was about, and man, was that a perfect statement, because what's he going to say? He can't say boring again. But what he did bring out was that all the people raised their hand for health care for illegal aliens. And he said, hello, what about American citizens? And I think Marianne Williamson, without even knowing what his tweet was, said, about that, the healthcare. She was kind of aligned in that energy, which was interesting. And I think there's a lot of really cool stuff she could do to move people in the energy of the election.
So that's why I think she is someone who I think has... I'm going to use my word potential, because I don't know how else to define it. I think Kamala, I think it's an experience issue. She hasn't really had the opportunity to be in front of a national and, quite honestly, international audience. And, I think she did well. Well, time will tell to see if she can be in that space, because, I think it's different when you're, you graduate to certain levels, and then all of a sudden when you're in a whole new arena, and you have to, once again, remain being yourself. I'm going to use a word I heard Sting use, and I mentioned it too the other night. It's almost a spiritual process. And when you get to, and this is not a religious thing, it's a spiritual process of remaining who you are as you get bigger and you go into bigger arenas, because the bigger arenas, the voices outside get louder. And so it becomes a question of, can you truly remain to be who you are? And I think some of the references, especially like what Bernie Sanders said, is, can we stand up to these special interests and lobbyists and the big farmers and the healthcare? Can we stand up to it? Who's got the courage? And I think a lot of that comes down to, if you are grounded and secure in who you are, you can stand up to anything. Right. Because it becomes easier. If you don't have that confidence in who you are, of course you can't do it. And so I think there is something to that in a grander scale. And that's why I say, if I look at this list, I didn't do it for the night before because there's no one really that kind of, but Kamala, Bernie Sanders, and Marianne are the three I think will go further along. I don't see anybody else in here. They just were all the same. Like Grace, what is it, Mr. Smith from like The Matrix? They're all the same. Is it Mr. Smith? He's like Mr. They're all the same person. And then the ones that stand out. That's to me who stand out on an energetic basis.
Yeah, Interesting, because I agree with that, yet I see the debates as differently, because there still is that number one issue that's being shoved down everyone's throat, and it's, it's only viable, the candidate is only viable if they can beat Trump. And so when you have that in the back of your mind, and I think another interesting thing that Marianne Williamson did last night was she mentioned John Kennedy. And she mentioned John Kennedy, and an article came out comparing Trump to Kennedy. And so she mentioned these things that were kind of aligned in the energy, and it's to me, that's something I kind of say that's kind of like backdooring, coming in from the back door when you least expect it. Yet, again, Trump has changed the landscape of being a president, and he's, everything has kind of, readjusted, and it hasn't really settled.
Let's be clear about one thing, though. It's something you said. You skimmed over, is that everyone's talking about who can beat Trump. Well, you know something? The media hasn't figured out how he won.
Right.
So how can you sit there and decide who has the ability to beat Trump when you don't even know what he did to win?
Exactly.
And we put together a book, and we talk about the energy, and we included the Trump information that we included in a previous book, and then we talked about a lot of the podcasts, and we said how Trump wins, and we went into it because there is an energy and that in its basic principles, right, that we all understand. And if you're going to make a decision and base who you vote for, and this is irrelevant to what I think, if that's what your goal is just to beat him, then let's be clear on what it takes. Because if you're listening to the media, you're going to vote for the wrong candidate because they don't know how he wins anything. They badmouth him, they make fun of him, they do all of this, and he still wins. They don't know how he's doing it, but we do. Mm-hmm. And we documented it. So that's what's important. If that is the key, then you better make sure you understand what it takes to beat him. Because right now, the media and, all the media, I'm trying to think of who could I exclude. The newspapers, the TV, social media, everything. They all badmouth him, and they think this is what he's doing, yet they haven't been able to stop him.
And they haven't even been able to come close to understand, like you said, what he's doing. And, it's funny to focus on, you want to focus on the positive, and you want to move with the positive. And, I'm not going to go into, the secret and all that crap. Yet moving into the positive really surrounds you with positive. And so when you look at it, of course, the media is, persuading us with fear.
Right.
We got to beat. We got to beat Trump.
And that's funny because that's what Marianne said Trump's doing.
Exactly.
And she was
Trump's
not doing.
On.
But she had it backwards because it's the media and it's all the outlets that are saying.
Who is she talking to? Right. Exactly. And so even when she brought Trump into the conversation and she said, "I'm talking to you," the media is soundbiting it. Everybody was soundbiting it. And so again, be clear on the energy of what you're consuming. And in the sense of how Trump wins is so much more important than how to beat Trump.
Right.
And so if you can know how Trump wins, and, perfectly just like what you said in our book, and putting together what we say in our podcasts about this, and looking at who could possibly win and challenge him better at his own game. That's what it's about. It's not about, oh my God, a fear. What's going to happen when he becomes president?
Guess what? All that we just talked about that. All the marches and everyone was all upset when he won. And guess what? All the people I know that were all upset, life went on. Like, give me a break.
Right.
And it's all in your perspective. And the one thing that I would like to add to that is that I read a lot, you read a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't read about political stuff. I read about energy, persuasion, subconscious. That's what we really focus on. Right. And then, of course, we bring it to people because that's where it becomes really interesting or boring, depends on, how it goes. But when we read, and when you read what we put together, you're going to go somewhere else. Every book we've written, That's always the feedback. Like my mind is like, whoa. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. And in that space, you find your own truth. You find your own truth. And everything that we discuss in the book, it's not specific to Trump. He's a great example, but they're concepts that everyone can use for themselves.
And the great thing about it is we've all lived through the great examples that are in the book. So we're sharing stuff, thinking differently about those aspects and utilizing it for ourselves to change.
And you know something? I have to just throw this out because this is huge. So the self-help industry, I'm just going to go in for just a minute about this. When I used to think that a lot of people who got burned by the self-help industry is because you would read these books and you'd read a story and you didn't really know the backstory because it was someone saying this is what happened, and you would read it and they could put in whatever they wanted, and many times I think people left feeling like, oh God, look at they overcome these obstacles, I can't overcome this, and it just, instead of lifting you up, it dragged you through the mud.
Right.
What's interesting about this is these examples. We're talking about something that occurred that we've all been a part of.
Right.
So it's not the self-help, oh, let me tell you about Susan Barbaro, let me tell you about Julie Bonetti, because why would you care about us? But if you can sit there and here's an example that you lived through, and then you take it, that's a whole different way of doing it. I didn't realize that because we didn't do it purposely that way.
Right.
We did what we got the energy and the foresight to do.
Yep.
I just realized the huge importance of it. Because you're not worrying, is Susan lying about what really happened, or we must not know the backstory. Susan must have had somehow, she must have had whatever. That all goes away because this is something we can all relate to.
Right. And so the name of our book is How Trump Wins, and it is available on Amazon.com right now. Thank you for listening to this production from EI Alliance. Check out our Amazon authors pages for books and podcasts, along with our Donald Trump and Oprah books for this series. Find great music by New Threads on iTunes, Spotify, and on newthreads.us.